still morning. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Powers, and this is my colleague.
I'm Andre Harris, and I'm the Health and Physical Education teacher at South Bronx Early College Academy Charter School.
And I am the computer science teacher at the South Bronx Early College Academy Charter School. We both teach 6th grade. We are a brand new school, open in the South Bronx as of September 2015. Every year we intend to add another grade. Today our talk is about how we have been piloting a program to integrate computational thinking across our curriculum, focusing currently with our physical education teacher, Andre Harris.
So what we're gonna do, what everyone has right in front of them is a sheet, okay? And this sheet is gonna give you a little bit of insight into what some of our students do, okay? So as you see, I'll go through the three subpoints, and we have pre and post workout mood, pre and post heart rate, and different types of physical activities. So we have aerobic, muscular strength and endurance, and flexibility, okay? So we're gonna ask everyone to participate. So that way you could get a better understanding of what our students do, okay? So if you're not too sure about how to check your heart rate, I'll give you a little recap on how to check that. So in your first lap, today is Sunday. So on our pre, you're gonna put in your mood. So your mood is gonna be from 1 to 6, 1 being the lowest and 6 being the highest, okay? So everyone, I want you to just jot it down and be as honest as possible. What's your current mood right now? Yes, so you'll write it right next to where it says Sunday on week 1 pre. And once again, 1 being the lowest mood and 6 being the highest. And we're not gonna collect this, so this is for you to analyze a little bit later, okay? So your pre and post heart rate, okay? If you look in the next slide, you'll see next to Sunday, your pre and post heart rate. So for right now, you're gonna check your heart rate, and how you could check it in 2 different fashions. The first way you could check it is put in both your fingers right into the interlocking right above your esophagus, throat, right above here, and until you feel a beat, okay? If you're not too sure about the beat, maybe you have to really go in the depths of that triangle and probably press in a little bit more. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you could put your 2 fingers, again, on your wrist until you feel a beat. For me, it's a little bit easier for me to feel it here, okay? If you're having a little bit of trouble with that, raise your hand. Okay, good. So we're gonna do a 10-second count. I'm gonna do the 10-second, and you count how many beats you can get, okay? And we're gonna start in 3, 2, and 1. And time. So what you're gonna do with that number, because that's how many pulses you counted, we're gonna times that number by 6, because we did it for 10 seconds. So you could do the math on the side or on the back of the page, and whatever number you get, times 6, you're gonna put that number in that slide, okay? Did everyone do that? Thumbs up if you've done that. Okay, great. All right, so in the next lap is the specific type of activity. So we have aerobic, muscular strength, endurance, and lastly we have flexibility. Now it did take us a little bit of aerobics to get in here, okay? And that was walking. And that encompasses with your mood and also your heart rate right now. So you'll put an A right next to the Sunday slide. I know everyone's asking, where is this gonna lead to? You will see, okay? So just hold on to that paper right there, and we're gonna come back to it a little bit later. Okay, so just to give you a little bit more information about South Bronx Early College Academy Charter School. So our school provides a rigorous and comprehensive liberal arts education to all of our students in the South Bronx through challenging New York State Common Core Standards aligned curriculum. So the Early College Academy will establish a learning environment that emphasizes on differentiation and personalization of instruction and a student-centered and fully inclusive approach to teaching and learning. So students will graduate from the Early College Academy prepared for success in college and for active through thoughtful citizenship.
Okay. So many of us are asking, why are we trying to integrate computational thinking throughout the disciplines? Well, nationally, it's a problem to get computer science taught as a course. That's one reason. But honestly, project-based learning deepens the experience of the child. So by integrating computational thinking in each discipline, we are sharing with our colleagues, I'm sharing with my colleague, the inquiry method of learning, the power of discovery of learning through thinking, through inquiry, and project-based. And in my experience in teaching computer science for 17 years, it is most natural in that discipline to experience deeper learning because students are constantly engaged in what we call a feedback loop, where they are receiving feedback immediately, whether or not their program compiles, whether or not their Scratch character does what they want their Scratch character to do instantly. And through inquiry and project-based learning in our discipline, we feel that we can share our experience with our discipline across the curriculum to deepen students' experiences in every discipline through that inquiry-based computational thinking problem-solving approach. So that is why it is important to bring it across the disciplines. Today's goals, we want you all to take away today from this presentation. What was it like for Andre and I to meet? What was that process like to get two teachers together to try to integrate computational thinking in a discipline? So what does that look like? We also want you to see and be a part of our student experiences. What did they learn? What were their objectives? And what were some of the artifacts that they created in both disciplines? And then finally, give you a chance to ask us questions and ask you to be patient because we're going to package what we have done in a more formal deliverable with lesson plans. Our goal is by August, but we've been building this partnership together throughout this entire year.
Okay, so we have someone walking backwards, and I think we're all familiar with the backwards design. So having the end goal in mind, okay? So when it came to the two, computer science and also physical education, they seem at far ends of the spectrum, okay? One seems more sedentary and one seems more active. So how can they possibly combine, okay? When tackling our, I guess, the challenges, we had to ask essential questions. And the essential questions that came about between the both of us gave us more insight, not just into our end goal, but also into our learners themselves as active users of technology and active users of being active and wanting to be healthy. So here are some of our essential questions. What type of data should a student track to determine if their fitness and health levels meet the national recommended guidelines for health and fitness? What computing tools will allow a student to collect, store, manipulate, and analyze the data to draw conclusions and produce knowledge about their own health? How frequently should a student collect information and create a baseline? How does the student analyze and respond to the data collected? How does the student use video to analyze their progress? How does society monitor their health and fitness? What type of information influences society's decisions about health and fitness? How does technology influence the student's health and fitness? And lastly, how can a student use computing tools to create a digital narrative that expresses their fitness journey?
So that was one of the first things that Andre and I did. We sat together and said, what do we want to get out of my curriculum? What experience do I want my students to leave with after having unit with me? And he did the same thing with his curriculum. And we found like one common theme was data. Right? Data could be used across the entire curriculum, and we can give our kids a very rich experience with data. So what I wanted to do as a computer scientist was teach kids, how do you collect data? How do you measure data? How do you graph data? How do you visualize data? But more importantly, after you do all these tasks, how do you talk about that data? How do you draw conclusions from that data? How do you tell a story with data? So it was so rich that they were going through this process in physical education it's a curriculum unlike any other that I have gotten to know by working with Andre. Students in his class, they're collecting data about their own personal fitness. How cool is that? That I can use that data in my classroom now, and I'm charting about me. I'm charting how good I'm getting at running or push-ups or sit-ups. So again, the end goal in project-based learning is to deepen the learning experience. And these kids are participating in a learning experience that crosses 2 disciplines. They're hearing the same language. They're manipulating data about themselves. So we've come up with our key questions together, and then we mapped everything that we're doing to our own disciplines. So I refer a lot to CSTA's K-12 national standards, and I also map a lot of what I do to Britain's Key Stage 3 standards. That's for 11th and 12th graders. So the student deliverables was a data sheet. It was a graph. It was a slide deck. It was a video. And through written form and oral form, we were able to tell that, yeah, we have met the goals of this interdisciplinary unit. And you'll see some of that. And I hope you'll agree with us as you see some of the artifacts that our kids made.
Okay, so this is a health and physical education unit map. As you can see, at the top right under the health and physical education map, you see student analysis and data collection. So why was that implemented into my curriculum? Oftentimes we'll see that physical education is just structured around sports, and that's about it, right? But we know that there's a problem with that. There's a problem because when we look at the CDC, when we look at different statistics about chronic illnesses, that's kids are still having chronic illnesses or they're obese, right? So why is that? Because they're not given the knowledge to really dive into their own personal health. And what I mean by that is something as simple as checking your heart rate, right? They might be introduced to this concept maybe one time, but then after that, it diminishes, okay? So what does that really look like? We know that we should be working out to our maximum heart rate, okay? That's the only way that physiological changes are happening. So that's basically 220 minus your age, and then you'll get your target heart rate, okay? But students, upon coming into the school, weren't aware of those concepts. They were, and you'll listen to some of their testimonials, that all they did was just play. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with play. We want the kids to play, but we want them to play to a point when they are reaching their target heart rate, because that's the only way that these changes will happen. So having PE for one time a week, is that really making a change? Everyone, is that really gonna make a change? No, right? That's not, so I don't have any problem with the current pedagogy that happens within the schools, but if we are gonna make a change, if we are gonna push against these chronic illnesses, then we have to make an instructional design change. So in my physical education class, I teach them the different types of training that we probably get as we get older. We hear about this through like Zumba and yoga, and we go to all these special classes. So why can't our students get these same classes at their age right now? So they go through a high intense interval training, frequency, intensity type circuit training, and they also learn how to individualize their meal planning as well, which then all of that data is then contributed into computer science by using their computing skills to analyze, to find problems, to find patterns within their own lifestyle, to then find a solution for that. So to know what our students do, you have to be in their place too, which is why you were given that sheet. So we're gonna do 2 minutes of Zumba. Now don't fret. I know, like Zumba, what now? You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to be on TV and doing all those fancy dances. I'm gonna play a short song, and what we're gonna do is you're just gonna follow me. It's gonna be simple movements, nothing too extreme. You're not gonna feel like Dancing with the Stars or anything like that.
What's happening to the video here?
Don't worry, just don't turn around. So what I'll ask for everyone to do, and right after we do the 2 minutes worth of Zumba, I'm going to ask you to go back to your sheet and then fill out your post mood, your post heart rate, and also the activity type, which will be A again. Okay? So everyone, please stand. Okay, so usually when I do any type of movement, I want it to be very basic and applicable to any skill level. So if you feel at any moment that I'm doing something a little bit too advanced and crazy, just slow down, okay? But I also like to do something called mirror check to make sure that everyone is aware of what I'm doing. So mirror check means if I have another mirror and I'm looking at the mirror, chances are the other side is doing exactly what I'm doing too. So if I put up my arm, what is everyone else gonna do? Okay, perfect. If I switch it up, you're good. If I just do this, what are you gonna do? Perfect, so we're now pros. Okay, so we're gonna begin. Okay, ready? Good. Good. Don't be intimidated, it's okay, everyone. Good. Switch. And a mini hop. Good. On your toes. Good. And clap. Roll. Roll. Good. Good. Perfect. Not too bad, right? You're like, yes, it is. Good. Switch. And we're going to make a turn going around. Good. See, we're already pros. I wish you guys could see yourselves. Switch. You're like, no. And point to your leg while tapping it. Switch. Uh-oh, they're taking pictures, guys. Switch. And a phantom jump rope. Turn it. Middle. Switch. Middle. I see you. Turn and slowing it down. I know some of you are like, I want to keep going, but we're going to slow down. And coming to a stop. And that's a hint. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, our kids experience that, but on a more extreme level. So go ahead, everyone. You're going to put in your post mood. How do you feel? And I'll do the 10-second count in about 10 seconds for your heart rate. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do 10 seconds for the heart rate starting. Everyone find your pulse, and it could be right here, or it could be right along this section. Okay? And begin. And time. So you'll take that number, you'll times it by 6, and then you'll have your post heart rate. And again, we're going to make this a little bit interactive. What were you able to analyze based on that activity? How did you come in? What kind of mood did you have? And how was it post activity? So can I get a couple of people to volunteer? Only if you feel comfortable, yes?
So in both cases it went up.
Okay, in both cases it went up. Okay, so your mood went up?
My mood went up and the heart rate went up.
And your heart rate went up. Anyone similar experience? Yes, okay, great. So in this case, you're also benefiting, you're seeing the benefits of physical activity, right? So then what happens after this? Our students then take this information and they'll input it into something called, we have a lot of different types. We have a student journal. We also have a data profile sheet. Now, all of these are different ways of assessing and analyzing our students on what's happening within them, okay? What's happening in their experience in PE, and also how are they using their computational thinking skills to then analyze themselves, their patterns, and then manipulate that. So let's take a look at our student journal from some of our students. Okay, so we have one of our wonderful students at the top, and I'll read you a little bit. Now that I've been using computers for our PE data, I feel that I did good, but I could do better. And I'm getting to try my best. I filled in all of my moods and my heart rate. My HR means heart rate, letting you all know what it means. I used my fitness tracker, which is, I'm gonna pause right there. Our students, all of our students also have fitness trackers, and their fitness trackers are able to track their steps, their miles, and also their heart rate. But as a precursor to getting their watches, they learned how to do it themselves, just in case they need to, sometimes we have to check over technology to make sure that it's accurate. So because it's my data, like how many steps, how I took, and how many calories I burned, which is another analysis of what it gives. So I use it to fill it in my PE sheet, which you'll see in a little bit. This process has been much better for me and has helped me more because now I know I'm on track with my fitness things. I'm glad that I take all of my data and put it on my PE sheet on the computer. So my goal is to get all of my work, my work done and reach a higher goal for my PE sheets that I could use in computers. Okay, so that's just a little snippet on how our students are still using hard copies to analyze what's happening, okay, as a reflective experience. Okay. So now how does that translate into our example with Cassidy? She said transfer it into her data sheet. So let's take a look at a data sheet. Okay, now this probably looks complicated. It probably looks like code. But for our students, we have our student, we call her JoJo. And she has her age, she has her height, she has her weight, and she also has her records in terms of PRs. The way I construct my physical education class is that every single month, the students commit to something called PRs, which stands for personal records. So instead of getting something like a fitness gram in the beginning of the year and the end of the year, they're always committing to a brand new challenge in the same area every single month. So they have their 5-minute laps, which is at the front. So they're going for about 30 meters. How many laps can they commit to in 30 meters in 5 minutes? They have push-ups. Everyone knows what a push-up is, right? So we have sit-ups and we have something called the agility matrix. And the agility matrix for us means that you're using information from the environment to calculate the best method available to get from point A to point B. So from our students have been plugging it in from October all the way through March currently, and so on. So as you can see from this, the information is there, but what happened after this? And I think Kelly could speak to this, is that they took it a step way higher than I ever imagined in the beginning. And as you can see, the graphs were not a part of the original equation when it came to this. The students within the computer science took their computational skills and then found, I would say, fractures or found deficits in their own data and wanted to find out what's happening, what's going on, how come in 1 month I have really high and then another month I got really low. So they used that to create the graphs and then analyze their data a whole lot further.
And I would just add, in terms of sequencing, when they first started data entry, I taught them how to use Google Sheets. What is a Google Sheet? What is a cell? And so we had some lessons in my class that introduced them to how to manipulate a Google Sheet, how to enter data into a Google Sheet. And then the first entry was done in my class. So they came into my class, and that helped me know the language of what was going on in physical education. When they came in and they were entering PRs, it made me get a good understanding of what is a PR in physical education. What are they doing upstairs? So I got a good sense of what the kids are doing. Later on, the kids use Google Chromebooks to enter the data in the PE classroom. So it transitioned from my classroom for data entry into physical education. The graphs I'll talk about in a little bit, but they were created in my class using this sheet.
Yes. So also, in combination with the data sheet, the data profile sheet, you also have video reflection. So pre and post, what's happening? How are our students enjoying the experience, right? And also, how are they analyzing themselves as a person to then create an individual plan that works for them using their computing skills, and also what they have learned in physical education. So we're going to take a look at a video reflection from one of our students. Anyone have any questions so far?
Comment that I see myself using this with the department actually.
Right.
Next year.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Because it's as we know, that technology is not going anywhere, and it's ever evolving. And all of our students are the pioneers of how technology progresses.
It's nice to get the data. You have like this sheet for several weeks probably.
Yeah, so this is a modified version just for today, but we have, and we'll see in a little bit, a whole month that's filled out for one of our students.
And what is the cost of those low-tech life watches, life track watches?
So we had them at a rate of $35 per life track watch.
And are they just used during the PE period, or are they?
No, so our students are encouraged to wear them throughout the whole entire day, right? They
own them, then take them.
They own them, essentially. They own them, in the hopes that they'll continue to use it not just within the school year, but past the school year as well. Because now they're invested. They're more invested within their own health.
Okay. I'm going to come back to the video recording at the end because we're not pairing up just yet. So I just want to go over with you, as a computer science teacher, when I talk about data in my classroom, these are some of the topics that I cover in 6th grade with just data. So we go through a progression of what is encoding and decoding, and then finally, the binary number system, encoding images, and then I'm really big about giving students an experience with data so they can understand how important it is to have data scientist skills regardless of what career they choose. And we have a lesson in just talking about, if I say 55 degrees, what is that? That's the temperature. If I say 5 feet 2, that's somebody's height. So if I talk about what a baseball player hit or the what do you call their hitting percentage? If I talk about different pieces of data, every field uses data. We gave a great batting average. Had a great example of our restaurant down the street, that if one of them was to sit outside the restaurant and just kept track of what people ordered. So we have a big restaurant in our neighborhood called Jimbo's. So I encourage them, hey, go to the Jimbo's manager and just say, hey, I want to sit outside your store and I want to ask everybody, what are they eating for lunch? And keep track of that data. Why is that important for the restaurant manager? So to really give kids a sense of data. Why is it important? And then now they see the restaurant's perspective, the manager's perspective on profit. Hey, if I'm selling a lot of hamburgers, suppose I increase the price by 5 cents, I'll generate more profit. The kids get that. So that's an experience in our neighborhood they can relate to. But now, hey, I've got an experience upstairs in the physical education classroom that they can really relate to. So now we're creating their own data set about them. We're learning how to filter and sort that data and then create some charts with it. So in my progression, specifically work with Andre, what I had wanted to do first was get a sense of what do kids understand, what do they know about data? What do they know about fitness? So I'm not so sure how valuable this particular piece of my unit was for my kids, but what it did is it informed me. How do kids think about fitness? I didn't know that answer. So I just gave them a slide deck that they had to respond to. And so just to get them to think, what is fitness? What does it mean to be healthy? What does it look like? So as I look at all of these answers, I have to have a discussion with my colleagues to see, was this valuable? Was this input valuable? And I like how most of them said, how do I know if I'm fit? Well, Mr. Harris tells me if I'm fit or not. So that was kind of interesting. My doctor. So this was just data for me to get a sense of what they know. So when they describe a fit person, this person's saying that somebody who has muscles, has a good heart rate, not overweight, someone who exercises every day. And this is their perspective. Some of the images always represented muscular people or healthy fruits and vegetables for what it means to be healthy. So again, this was just for me to get a sense of what they were thinking. So here again, how do we know who to listen to about personal health and fitness? And most of them said Mr. Harris, which is Andre's last name, and that's the physical education teacher. So that was data for me as I started this fitness journey. And here is a fitness journey. It's a slide deck. It's taking those it's taking those graphs that kids created about their own fitness and then analyzing them and then putting that in a story. So every child had to create a story about their fitness using the data that they collected, using the data that they graphed in my class, and using the data that they analyzed. So here was just a little story. I want to know a little bit about them. They told me what school they went to before they came to our school, how often they had physical education. Most of them did not have it 5 times a week. In our school, we have it 5 times a week. And then just a random question, do you have any brothers and sisters? Do you have any pets? So this particular student, Jason, he said when he first joined Mr. Harris's class, he thought it was scary boot camp. And that's a very different expression than that we've heard from just the general public when you ask him about PE. And now he thinks it's fun. So here's an example. This was a requirement for every student. They had to insert their graph that they graphed in my class about their 5-minute laps. So I purposely had them choose a line graph and a bar graph. And I said to them, I let them choose which one they thought told the story best. So they had to make that decision. Do you think you can talk about your fitness using a line graph, or would you prefer to use the bar graph? It's up to you. Both are fine. So he had to sit down and look at this and say, you know, I've been going down in my 5-minute laps, but I can maintain an average of 50 laps. I'm not as quick as I used to be. Too much pressure. Now we've had some people wrote a lot on this, some a little. We pushed them. Some students, they would first write, I went up and down. I said, that's not good enough. You're not analyzing the data. I don't understand that. So we pushed them to go back and put a little bit more data, which was helpful for them, because then they got the aha. It's not just about sticking in a graph. It's about really thinking about your performance. How are you doing? In push-ups, what I liked about his response here is he referred to a term in physical education. He referred to my muscular endurance. So getting, again, some sort of assessment, informal assessment in a written form was pretty interesting, that we say, hey, he's getting your language, which is pretty cool. He was only able to do 10, and then he's grown up to 23. And in sit-ups, I noticed a lot of the kids, they've gone up and down, and a lot of them are going down again in lots of these areas because they're concentrating on form, which I thought was, and they could tell me that, which is pretty cool. Like, they're not just doing any push-up, they're doing a push-up that has really good form. And they can explain that using their data. So that was pretty powerful. With the agility matrix, it's good to go down, and I didn't know what that meant, which was really interesting, because when I talked to the students, I was like, wow, your data's going down, you're getting worse. And they didn't know the answer at first. And then they realized, oh, you know what, it's good to have to go down. That's an improvement in my score. So that was a learning moment for me and for the child too, to take a moment and think, right? It's all about thinking, inquiring, and pushing them to use their brain and develop that brain, develop their thinking skills. So in this last piece, which I thought was really interesting, is I gave all of my students a survey. And I mimicked the survey using a data set that's available by the Exploring Computer Science curriculum. Exploring Computer Science is a 9th grade, 8th, 9th, 10th grade national curriculum. And they do a unit in data. And they give teachers the opportunity to choose a data set. And this particular data set talked about 9th grade and high school age kids, their fitness. So they were maybe 25 questions, and I'll show it to you in a bit. So I had my students take this survey. So one of the things I like to do in a data unit is say, okay, if I give you all this information, all this data, I should say, what questions would you like to have answered about using this data set? So the kids had to write 3 questions that they would like to have answered using this data set. So I'll show you the data set in a moment, and it was about them. It was the entire 6th grade. So using this data set, Jason wrote 3 questions. how many females have breakfast for 3 or more days? And he could get that question answered using the Google Sheet that I provided to the whole class, using filtering and sorting. So I taught them the skills to filter and sort, and they were able to answer their own questions using the data set that represented the 6th grade class. How many friends are very underweight? And this was an opinion. The student answered if they thought they were underweight or overweight or just about right. And 3 females from this data set believed that they were underweight. And then how many females in 6th grade play on 4 or more sport teams? And Jason found that 8 females are on 4 or more sports teams. So this is like my culminating activity for these kids, was to really give them a set of data that they had, a survey that they can then look at that data and create some good questions from that source. And to look at that, I'll show you the survey real quickly. My next step with the kids, is this visible? Should I increase that a little bit? So this is my 6th grade, and they all answered this survey. And then the kids used filtering to answer their questions. So my next step with this set of data is to merge it with the set of data that I have from the national curriculum, which has 15,000 records. So I have a 6th grade snapshot, which is about 100 records. And I have 15,000 records, and then we want to see if we can create some interesting questions about our 6th grade versus this national data set of 15,000 records. That would be my next step with this data set. And the last takeaway for you was to talk a little bit about the relationship we have with CSNYC. We're working with a researcher named Kelsey Finkel. And like the number one question for many of us who teach computer science in the country is how do you measure whether or not someone how do you assess computational thinking? Like what research is out there that can tell us whether or not a student is really learning, blossoming? How can you test that from this experience of being in a computer science class, from being in an integrated unit? So that was the ideal research study that we wanted to take on, hopefully we'll get to that. So we kind of switched it to what is it like to create a project-based unit across the curriculum that's goal is to integrate computational thinking in another discipline. So this way, if you come to us and say, how did you do that? It's really more about just giving you a collection of lessons, but it's really documenting the approach that Andre and I took to get to where we are today. Like, what did that look like? What did we do in the computer science class? What did we do in the physical education class? How did we meet? You know, a lot of teachers, you just cross in the halls. You don't even have time to meet. So we're creating a roadmap of what that looks like, and with the help of CSNYC. Now, not only that, CSNYC helped us think about the essential questions and really think about what do we want our kids to learn in this integrated unit. So they have been extremely helpful in guiding our work with data and physical education and computer science. So to summarize, you know, we hope to get computational thinking in all of our disciplines. To me, data is easy. I mean, I could work with any teacher with data. It's so natural. It's great for our students. Teachers begin to have a shared vision for the learning outcomes, for the thinking outcomes, to develop the problem-solving skills. The experiences are so deep. I mean, the kids talk to both of us about why are we doing computer science and PE? Why are we doing PE and computer science? So we know it's working because they're talking about it. And Andre shared with me, students are even going beyond. They're now taking some other data and they're graphing it. And you had mentioned one more, like post effect of our working together that one of the students was going on.
Right. So in terms of like the student awareness of the collaboration has deepened their experiences. Just to talk a little bit based on that. In the beginning, it was like, why is science in PE, physical education and computer science, and you could tell that the questions were deepening, and I believe those questions happened in around January, like really, like how come, why are we doing this? And we started to see that the questions started to trickle down and started to evolve into something else, right? How can we use computational thinking? How can we use these skills to then further and evolve what we're doing with my own health?
I just thought of the example, Aurelis, just
Right.
recently when she was talking to you about.
Right. So one of our students asked them probably about 2 weeks ago, how has computational thinking helped you to understand yourself a little bit better? And she elaborated a little bit. I'm going to quote her as much as possible, but she elaborated that when she was looking at her graph and she was looking at the cells, that she could tell that 1 month her PR, her personal record, went down, and she could tell because that happened during the morning time, and she knows that she has to warm up in the morning prior to trying to tackle a PR. But what's interesting is about that is if you just look at, the numbers, right, you're not able to tell that. So you could tell that there was a lot of deep understanding happening, that she was able to locate on this day, Tuesday, I should have warmed up because that's why my PR was that low in February, which was cool for both of us to just hear, that happening. Because again, it is hard to, how do you measure computational thinking?
Okay. So in our last slide, I think we're opening it up to you all for questions and answers. I was just going to try to pull up the video of one of the children talking about physical education, his journey. And as soon as I pair up, I'll play that. But while we're waiting, are there any questions that we can answer from the audience?
Don't be shy.
So I have a question.
Sure.
You're using the CSTA Computer Science Standards?
Yes.
Is that like what most schools use? I don't know.
That's a great question. Right now, there's a movement across the country in all states, right, to create CS standards. But before this, in the last few years, there were really no statewide standards. So our go-to resource was the national standards.
That's the CSTA.
CSTA standards.
Right.
Now, as we speak, they're being rewritten, right? But by a collaborative effort across many, there are some people here really involved in the rewrite. Many parties across the country, they're rewriting the computer science CSTA standards with the leadership of CSTA.
Most people are using that, I would assume, no?
And I would say, like, in everything computer science, it depends. So Massachusetts is right, theirs is up for draft right now. So but their input to this process was the CSTA standards because that was all we had.
Okay.
The UK, they have a nice collection of standards that I use right now in my teaching because it's solid, I like what they're doing, and I use them to map what I do to the learning outcomes that we want for all children. Yes?
So I can see how the blend of physical education and computer science lends itself so well to data. Is your school thinking about blending it in? And of course I can see how science would lend itself.
Right.
But what about reading and writing? And do you see any opportunities there so much? Or do you think it would seem to me that science and phys ed and maybe, of course, math would lend themselves, but not the other two?
I would disagree only because the tools for teaching in computer science are so rich, and we have tools like Alice for storytelling, even with Scratch. You could
That's
do
new to me. Say again,
Alice, ALICE. And there's been tons of work with Alice at Duke, where teachers came together across disciplines. How can we use this tool of storytelling, mostly storytelling, a little bit of gaming, and use it to integrate computer science, computational thinking throughout the curriculum. In addition, Scratch has been used, right, to not only in math and science and computer science, but in other disciplines to tell stories. To give you, are you familiar with Scratch?
I am, but these blendings into the other curriculum, I'm completely never heard of any of these things you're mentioning.
So if you check the Duke website, there's definitely some lessons out there that teaches Duke, D-U-K-E, Duke University. There's a girl named Susan Rogers. She's put a lot of work into getting teachers together and writing lessons for cross-curricula.
Oh, wow. Great.
So she's good. There's always lots of stuff in the Scratch community in general, but I'm very familiar with Susan Rogers' work.
Thank you.
So given what's happened this year, and they're going to move into 7th grade next year, sort of developmentally, what do you anticipate sort of the next phase of learning might be, both in terms of computer science and in terms of phys ed? What's sort of the next stage? Thought about that?
Absolutely. So with the student profile sheet, it is the mainframe is for the school year, for the 2015 and 2016 school school year. But the hopes is that the students will be able to use their computational thinking skills and then be able to monitor their own health throughout their whole entire school life. And that way they could compare and contrast how because 1 year is a short amount of time. It might seem like a lot of time, but in order to notice your own personal patterns, it will take a longer, probably even years. So our students are at 6th grade, so I can see it even all the way up until 12th grade as well, where they're able to really notice their patterns and then evolve the process using their computational thinking skills even further. So we're gonna bring up one of our awesome students, and he's gonna give a little bit of his testimonial on the overall process so far.
So his name is Daniel, and every student artifact that we are showing you, every student has to create the journey. They have to create the case study. And you have to create a 1-minute video.
Then I got interested.
As you can tell, there's a lot of reflection.
Hi, my name is Daniel. And started talking about my fitness journey. Gym. So then I got interested into gym by Mr. Harris. Gym was one of my favorite subjects. So that's mostly it. Then after a while, Mr. Harris made us do PRs. PRs is personal reference. Those were really hard for me because I was really not used to it. I was usually used to just playing around because in my own school, they would usually never do PRs or anything else. Mr. Harris introduced me into something much bigger and made me a more attractive person to gym. Gym now is one of my favorite. Now I'm excited when I have gym. When I first started school, I was not really excited. I was just like, oh my god, this gym kind of, I don't want to be. But now, today, I'm just like, yes, gym, okay, let's just get on. So now, this is why I love gym. This is my fitness gym. Still going on, still have a few months, but I'm still doing it.
All right, so that's Daniel. Okay, well we are, I'm new to the New York community. I was in Massachusetts for quite a long time, so we're here to share with you what we do. You know, we have a brand new school, trying things out, trying to stir it up with computational thinking across the curriculum. So we welcome your feedback, we welcome your ideas, and we're at the South Bronx. I will post this presentation on the URL that Sean sent out to everyone. I just want to make sure that the links work, so I have to make sure I package it properly. Yes?
So I'm going to sort of out myself here. I'm the head of the school. I'm sort of curious how many people here are public school teachers or involved in public school education at some level. We're great. If you're really trying to build a community here, I mean, we started the school with the idea that the kinds of thinking we want to leverage in every subject area, that computer science provides a context and a platform that is very powerful in doing that. So questions about literature and history as a site for computer science is one we've considered, and we've already had some lesser integrations across science and some other areas through Kelly's work. But what we really like to think about is that we want a larger public school community is willing to think with us about this, whether it's at a 6th grade level, 3rd grade level, 12th grade level. And we are now the host site for the Scratch community within New York City. We had our first Scratch meetup about 3-4 weeks ago. We're going to have another one we hope in June, and we'll start happening on a monthly basis. And that's one forum we started to talk about this whole integration of CS and the various subject areas. So, we were a site that's really committed to doing this work and doing it well, but we're only going to do it as well as we have people to think with us who are doing the same kinds of things in their schools. So thanks to Kelly and Andre for doing this, but I hope that you will get in contact when Kelly sends out the information, and maybe we can have some kind of meeting just around this very question about how we leverage computer science across the subject areas. Because I think it's also how some students, in the last presentation I was in, the person was saying that some students will go into computer science careers, but many won't. But want to have a certain kind of fluency. That fluency is only going to develop if it's done in an authentic context where people really see its utility and its ability to take a problem apart and solve certain kinds of issues and questions. And God knows, given the quality of the current national discourse on the presidential campaign, we need a better educational system and a lot more critical thinking out there in our schools.
So we're
I want
done.
to say something. I'm Shauna Michelle. I'm the program director of Preservice teaching at Manhattan College, and I come because I think it's tough that you're trying to do this after you're already in classes. We should really do this in Preservice. So I really want to be part of this conversation so I can back it up. So before you get out there, that you're really well trained and really know how to do all this thing. So my question is, how difficult is it to try to train yourself to cross this digital divide after you've graduated and you're now in the classroom? And how more helpful would it be for people in higher ed to bring it back in and bring out people that are already trained on this? How difficult it is to do it now that you're actually teaching?
Having two experienced teachers, it's not as difficult, right? So if I was to work with even a brand new teacher entering computer science for the first time, it would be just like teaching for the first time. It's always rough for the first 3 years, and then they'll be fine.
So I don't have to?
No. So what I would say, however, though, what we do need, we need pre-service work. Absolutely, that is ideal. We have never had it. And one of the reasons we don't have it is because there's not a license for computer science in many states, right? In many states, that didn't even exist as a teaching license. So that we absolutely need a lot of work in the pre-service area. And there are plenty of people, from even in CSNYC, that have been in a lot of conversations with some of the colleges to say, hey, we need to start developing coursework for our pre-service teachers. And CSNYC is probably the best to start at. But yeah, we would love to work with you. I know at our school, we're trying to create relationships where we get student teachers come into our school. Because we do have, Rick has created a school with a lot of experienced teachers for the first year, so that we have a good start and a fast start, and then we can start mentoring other teachers. And that's where we would welcome the pre-service, but we need a lot of coursework. And I think, Lionel, you probably comment.
So I work with Leanne at CSNYC. We had last week's because we're doing professional development, but addressing the pre-service end of it is determining how that pre-service will look, whether it's an actual degree certification or a course, or is it implemented as part of a couple of weeks here or there, and what actually should be taught, and depending on what they're actually. So it's a tough decision, but it's definitely encouraged, because if anything, it helps get over the anxiety of trying to take on computer science and new teachers.
I think one other angle too, having started and ran a teacher education program for about 10 years, that we focused on the idea that teachers should be practitioners in the fields of teaching, what constitutes historical thinking or knowledge making in science. But I think the thing we don't do enough of in pre-service is actually help those teachers to see how people are actually using computer technology in those fields. I mean, even in the field of writing, there's a lot of journalists who talk to you about the ways that computer technology and computer science has actually facilitated work in journalism. But we don't bring that into the classroom of pre-service teachers and begin to see how that works in a way they become comfortable with, so they can actually bring it to the classroom. So,
Well, what I will do is I do have PE. I do have a concentration in PE and college. So what I'd like to do is invite you to talk to that class. Let's start there, right?
Sure.
And then talk about how to be integrated now in that PE in the fall, right? And then have them do this as student teachers, your project.
Nice.
And I'd be glad to have you come in and be part of that transition of our PE program.
Thank you.
And maybe find a mini grant or something that we can do together to keep it going. That be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to spread the love. The CS love. Any more questions? So if you think of any, our emails will be on the presentation. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll do our best to get back to you within 24 hours.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.